वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ओम साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ओम जयन्ती मंगलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवदात्री स्वाहा स्वादा नमोस्तुते। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। Sairam Lane, Sairam from Malaysia.
Sairam Sharma, Sairam from New Zealand. Greetings to our listeners, and thank you, Bhagwan, for allowing me to relate a very touching story that taught me a major lesson in Prashanti Nilayam. Our topic tonight is, why do you bother an old man? One hallmark that I noticed during my many visits to Prashanti is that all the elderly men who lived in the ashram, and some of them were very elderly, well past their 80s into their 90s, and there was even one man who was 105 who was serving water in the men's canteen. Swami always gave these elderly gentlemen jobs to do if they wished. And they were so energized by living in the ashram that honestly, you often saw them skipping around, running around, doing jobs that you would never think a man of that age could do. Now, there was one old gentleman who used to sit at a card table selling copies of EHV and Balvika's magazines and various ashram productions to do with schools. And you could also get a subscription to Sanatana Sarati in the office behind him, but he had his own little card table and he had his own way of dealing with the money that you paid for the products that he sold. And he had very big glasses on. In fact, you could hardly see his eyes. The lenses were so thick. He was very, very elderly, very thin. But he was there every day, rain or shine. And I was working with many SSEHV projects and Balbikas back in New Zealand. And so I decided on one of my last days that I would purchase some of his magazines. I sat down at a little chair opposite him on this somewhat rickety card table, and he had little rocks holding these packs of magazines and flyers together. And I chose what I had wanted. It came to 300 rupees. I only had a 500 rupee note, which I offered to him. "Oh, madam," he said, "now I will have to make change." And he was frowning somewhat. So 200 rupees he needed to find. To my surprise, he began to reach up. He reached down and put his hand up the leg of his pants, down where his ankle was. And he fiddled around and unpinned a wad of rupee notes. He then reached into his shirt and unpinned another wad of notes, different denominations. This went on for some time. He had bundles of notes pinned all over the inside of his pants and his shirt. And I just didn't know what was going to happen next. And he laid these all out on the table, counting each note. 1 Sairam, 2 Sairam, 3 Sairam. This took a long time. And then he put a rock on top of each pile of notes. There were 2 rupee notes. There were 5s, 10s, 20s, and no hundreds. And then he began to try to make the change. By this time, I had been sitting there in the heat for well over 30 minutes. This is how long it took, because he moved slowly. And a lady from South Africa, dressed in a beautiful South African clothing, lovely muumuu, long gown, big turban on her head, very fine-looking lady, came over and said, "Oh, I would like to buy some magazines from you, please, Sairam." And he shouted at her, Go away. Why do you bother an old man? Can't you see I'm busy? And she burst into tears and scuttled away. He was frowning by now, but every moment he was counting 2 Sairam, 5 Sairam, 6. So he finally got the 200 rupee change for me, all in these small notes. He then removed his glasses and beamed at me. He said, Sairam, madam, here is your change. And I smiled back at him. I said, thank you, sir, for taking the time to make the proper change for me. And you know what? His whole face lit up like the sun, and I saw him as Swami. What was he teaching me? Patience, patience, patience. And when he shouted at that lady, he shouted with so much anger, I thought, he made her burst into tears. And sometimes we burst into tears when someone is shouting at us. But who is truly shouting at us? And what are they trying to teach us? What can we learn? We don't talk back. We just simply say quietly, Sairam to that. Sairam to that. We love you, Swami. I see you, Swami, scolding me. Help me, Swami. Help me be the devotee you wish me to be. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. तस्मात् कारुण्य भावेन रक्ष रक्ष साईश्वरा. हरि ओम तत्सत् श्री साईश्वरार्पणमस्तु. ओम शांति शांति शांति.